Hello, film fans. Welcome to the Film vs. Film podcast. My name is Martin Harries, your host, and I'm joined by the film encyclopedia man, Boaz Dix. We are a couple of filmmakers on occasion, but mainly can't stop yapping about movies. On this podcast, every episode we pick a topic from a film that's coming out at the cinema or on VOD. Myself and Boaz pick our favourite film from that topic, and we battle it out to decide which film will become the greatest film of all time, according to two film geeks from Wiltshire, England. If you enjoy this podcast, please leave us a review and subscribe. Welcome to the Film vs. Film podcast. This week...
All right, Michael Caine.
It's Ronald Cray.
No.
This week... I can't fucking do it.
This week, we're only supposed to blow the bloody doors
This
off.
week we're doing fucking Tom Hardy films, and I can't do the accent very well. It's hard, man, to do Ronald Cray. Let There Be Carnage is out in cinemas.
Give me your fucking sauce. That's a bit...
And of course, Tom Hardy stars in that film as Eddie Brock. So we'll be picking our favourite Tom Hardy films. And as ever, I have with me the Mr. Encyclopedia Man, as always. Mr. Boaz Dix, how are you, sir?
I'm doing fabulous.
He's doing fucking brilliant. A lot of swearing in this one, I'm afraid. So if you don't like swearing, pick another fucking podcast, I think.
Nah, if you don't like swearing, fuck off.
You may know already, but we now have a Buy Me a Coffee account. So if you like what we do, click on the link below in the show notes. And if you want to show us your appreciation, just buy us a coffee. And it will be very much appreciated.
Or a whiskey.
Or a whiskey or a pizza. I can change the icon to anything.
Yeah, anything.
Boaz, should we go with your film first?
Yep.
What is your pick for Tom Hardy films?
The Legend.
Cool.
It's really addictive to try and do the Cockney. It's Legend. Legend. It's about the legend of the Cray twins.
Cool. So why did you pick this one?
Because I'd watched it before, actually. So this is one of the few that I'd done my research on.
Oh, right.
It just sprung to mind. You said Tom Hardy films, you'd pick Bronson, which, I probably would have picked.
All right.
And the only other one I could really think of that really stuck in my head was Legend.
Okay.
So, let's hoping that, a double dose of Tom Hardy beats your single dose of Tom Hardy. But we'll see.
Yeah. So what happens in Legend? Sorry.
Yeah. So it's about the infamous gangsters, the Cray twins, the scourge of London's East End. It's told from the perspective of Frances, who is Reggie Cray's girlfriend.
Yeah.
And just basically how she kind of entered into this world where they're, up-and-coming gangsters that end up, ruling London. And then it does the whole fall thing as well. Yeah, it's a really interesting film. And, both the Cray twins are played by Tom Hardy.
Which I think is the first time this has happened before. So I think in a lot of, all the other Cray twin adaptations, it's always been two different actors. So
yeah, who usually look nothing alike, which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, who looks more like Tom Hardy than Tom Hardy?
Yeah. So what did you make of this one?
Yeah, man, I like it. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, who doesn't like Tom Hardy? He's such an incredible actor.
Yeah.
So that's a big plus for this film. I love how the film immerses you into the 60s. I kind of like the fact that a lot of the violence, the film doesn't shy away from it. It does have a very glossy look to this film, but they don't shy away from the violence, which I quite like. I do have some issues with it in terms of the writing, but we'll get into that. Yeah, so let's go straight into directing then. I actually love the scene when Reggie takes Frances Shay, played by Emily Browning, out on a date in one of the clubs he owns, and they get interrupted by some of his business associates, and then there's something to deal with, and Reggie deals with it in a very gangster way, a gangster fashion, then goes back to his date with Frances near the beginning of the film. The whole scene is done in one shot, and I feel like you don't even notice it, even if you were looking for it, because it's not showy. It's not saying, look at us, we're doing this in one shot. No, they're doing it, this in a way because it's really efficient and really effective to let the actors do their thing, and it's just a really cool way as well, just to immerse yourself in this world, really. So I really like that bit. That was cool.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me a bit of like Goodfellas, the tracking shot through the kit, through into the club with his date. But in this one, it's like tracking shot, and keeping on them all in one take. They're sat down, and then he it's still the same scene, and then he has to deal with something, and then a little bit of violence.
Yeah,
it's not like shying away from the gangster stuff. Like, this is who he is. He's kind of an animal. But
I love the little retaliation scene where the first rival gang, the Richardsons, south of the river, they run over Reggie Cray in their car. Then Paul Bettany, who plays Charlie Richardson, is just having a conversation with his friend in a cafe. Then boom, the Crays drive through their cafe. And then Charlie still wants his food, which I found quite funny. And it's just a shame, we don't see Paul Bettany again in the film. I was like, really?
Yeah, I was actually going to say that. I thought Paul Bettany was really funny and very charismatic, and his character was pretty damn awesome. And he was barely in there.
Yeah.
I thought it would be the main, antagonist of the piece. And I forgot how good he was because I haven't watched this film in quite a few years. And I kind of forgot that he was in it. And I'm like, damn, he is really, really cool. I like the trial scene where he's got a judge's wig on. And they've got this guy upside down and they are torturing the fuck out of him. And he's like, order in the court, order in the court. And he's like, I don't know anything. You say, Your Honor. It gives a conduit for the discussions. It's respectable. And then he just comes down off of the judge chair and just starts beating the crap out of him.
Then they electrocute him.
Say it's the Cray. Yeah, they electrocute him. And they're like, say it's the Crays. It's no leading the witness. They're trying to... It's so funny. It was such a funny scene. And I thought Paul Bettany, he was having fun with that. So. It is a shame that he disappeared.
Yeah.
Actually, even his last scene was pretty funny where... the cops raid his place, and he just wants to watch the football.
Yeah, and they all kind of
he's oh, for God's sake, come on, man. He's like, yeah, it was a goal, yeah. They drag him away.
Yeah, the cops just watch it as he's watching it as they're arresting him. That's quite funny. Yeah. Oh yeah, I like the fight the Crays have, where there's a few POV shots of them slapping each other, in the casino, and the camera goes from side to side, like it's one of their heads. But I didn't think the movement was sharp enough, really. But the fight itself was pretty good, especially when Ronnie accidentally takes out Les. That was quite funny. But I think one of the most shocking things in the film is one you don't actually see fully, and it's from Reggie, not Ronnie, where Reggie drags Frances home in the rain, out of the rain, and drags her into the bedroom, and Frances is screaming, and the camera cuts to outside the bedroom, and it pulls out really slowly through the flat, and you just hear the domestic violence. It kind of feels worse, the fact that you can only hear it and you have to kind of imagine the rest. It's pretty dark, that bit, but I think quite well done with that really simple pull out with the camera.
When Reggie or whatever goes mental on Jack the Hat.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
that was fucking nuts. Yeah, and that was pretty damn violent, and it's the last violent act of the film, and that was pretty full on. Tries to shoot him, and the gun jams, and then he just grabs a knife. And I like how the camera eyes up the knife, he's thinking about Jack the Hat, you son of a bitch, and you see the lemon knife, so it's setting it up.
Yeah,
and he grabs it and just starts shanking the fuck out of him.
Yeah, Tom Hardy really goes for it in that. It's really quick and really shocking. Because it's all done at a Christmas party, isn't it, I think? But Tom Hardy as Ron, he doesn't, flinch at all. He even looks curious about what's going on while everyone else is, screaming. And he asks, why did you do that? And then Reggie, who's really on the edge of crazy, says, because I can't kill you, no matter how much I fucking want to. It's such an intense moment for the climax of the film.
Yeah. Frances's suicide, mainly because it was so slow and paced out. It's she takes a tablet and you think she's always taking tablets to drink, another tablet, and the camera's sort of pushing on into a
Yeah.
reflection as she's just taking more and more tablets and more glasses of water. And you're like, all right, yeah, she's going to die.
Yeah. Favorite shot for me, I like the very simple directing of when Ronnie Kray shoots George Cornell in the head. When Ronnie enters the pub, the camera just cuts to behind Ronnie's shoulder, follows him round the bar, no one-liner before he kills him, just pulls the trigger, no messing about. It makes it a lot more shocking how simple it is, because it just happens with no suspense at all. It's just so brutal. It's like, yep, he's dead. In a bar.
The camera turns to a face-on of Ronnie after bang, blood's everywhere. And he's just like, who's laughing now, you fucking... And just walks out of the goddamn bar.
Yeah.
Oh, and then it has the camera on the barmaid, who's like, that's fucking Ronnie Kray. Like that. So, yeah, that was a pretty well done series of shots.
You got a favourite shot then?
I would say my favourite sequence, actually, now thinking about it, is that guy being tortured upside down.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Where Ronnie has a fight with all those guards. Well, basically, they beat the absolute toss out of him. I thought that was done pretty well. I mean, the energy in that, that was fucking crazy. But, yeah.
So directing score for me, I think a lot of props has got to go to the production of this as well. It looks amazing, the 60s style of it, the clothes, the hair, everything is just immersed in 60s, which I really admire. It's pretty competently directed, and when they do have stylish flashes, they do it really, really well. I don't think it's anything too special. This is actually a case of a film where I kind of wanted it to be longer as well, because I do feel like this is probably more of a script thing, but there are some characters where I definitely wanted more of. Like Christopher Eccleston's character, he's as the lead detective, he's hardly in it for me.
Yeah, I think one of the problems is because it seems to be filling in. I don't know exactly how much time, but quite a few years.
Yeah,
Francis's start and then their fall. That it goes over quite a lot. It's their stuff with rival gangs, their friendship with the mafia, their casino business, their sex scandal, Ronnie's murder of this, him assaulting his wife, just all this stuff. There's so much stuff in it. And I don't think you have long enough on these characters, because a lot of these characters got nothing to do with each other. The detective after him has got nothing to do with the rival gangs of the mafia. So you have these self-contained scenes, and they're quite short. So I think what they either should have done is made this film a lot longer so that you have more time with these storylines.
Yeah.
Either altered history, basically, and actually made them sort of converge, do you know what I mean? So it seems it's all in one thing. Or alternatively, just focus on a shorter time frame, just one storyline.
Yeah, I think I agree, yeah. But certainly with the scenes with the Krays, the important moments in history with the Krays, they do really, really well, I think. Yeah. So I think score, I'll go 7.8 for me. How about you, sir?
I do agree with you. I like the style of it. I like especially the long shots, the long takes, and the costume design and everything. And I think they did a very good job of casting and stuff. I'm going to go an 8.
Okay. Screenplay then. One thing I do love about this film, it's really funny at times. Just the creative swearing as well, which is great. But I think certainly my favourite character is Ron Kray.
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah, without a doubt.
I love the scene where Ron is expecting a shootout and notices one of the rival gang members has a pipe in his hand, and the guy says, "It's a fucking tool." And Ron says, "No, it's not. It's a fucking rolling pin. What are you, Fanny Craddock? What are you going to do with that? Are you going to bake me a cake? Are you going to sing me a song? Watch me blow out my fucking candles." He goes on, but it just shows you he's just gagging for violence.
Yeah, I came here for a shootout with fucking guns, like real men. Yeah. A shootout, like a western.
But he wants, the violence to be done properly. But of course, it was just a trick, so Ron can come back into the bar and surprise them and then when Reggie says, "Now, before we start, I got a little joke for you. You'll love this one. Paranoid schizophrenic walks into a bar. Bosh!"
Yeah, he comes in with a pair of hammers. Yeah, that was pretty cool.
I really liked it, but I just feel like the scene was a bit too theatrical for me, a bit too high risk. Maybe they knew they wouldn't have any guns, I don't know, but it was fun, but I didn't entirely buy it for me. But it was still fun.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of moments which seem way too unbelievable to have actually happened.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if they did, but, I like all of, what was it, Ronnie's stuff about Enugu. I want 50,000 for Enugu. I want to build a city in Nigeria. You shout outs to Nigeria. Yeah.
For the kids.
Yeah, for the kids. Do you know what Enugu means? It means utopia. Utopia means nowhere. With this money, I can make it somewhere. He's fucking brilliant. Yeah.
But Ron, Enugu's in Nigeria and Nigeria's in Africa. It's really far away. Are you going to go there or not?
Yeah.
It's like, I might do.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a great bit which made me laugh out loud. There's a great bit where they're all in the practically empty casino and business is really slow because Reggie's been in prison for a spell. And David Thewlis's character, Leslie Payne, is talking to his people and saying, all I'm saying is crime is still a business. You need a public relations department, and we've got Joseph Goebbels. And Ron is looking at them from across the room and asks Les, what are they saying? He asks Les to lip read what they're saying, and Les says, I'm struggling, but I think he's saying something about gobbles or nobles. And then Ron says, that's very strange. It's so funny.
Yeah, that was really funny. Yeah. I think you can list a lot of Ronnie's very weird one-liners.
Yeah.
Do you remember that bit where they do a deal with the mafia? And he says, you can come to Vegas, we get you all the girls you like. And he's like, I like boys.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay. And he's like, Italians, Greeks. I'm not prejudiced. I've had a Negro. Yeah. He goes, I bent up a Tahiti like a fucking pretzel.
Yeah, that's my favourite line.
I'm not just like, what the hell?
Yeah, that's my favourite line, actually.
Yeah, that was hilarious.
He says, because I happened to have a Negro once, and a Tahiti, who I bent up like a pretzel. I really fucking hurt. And everyone's just like, someone speak now.
Well, I like how the Italian is like, not a lot of guys would admit that. You have balls, It's like, this guy's got balls.
There's lots of funny lines. At the start, from Reggie, at the cops in the car, where do you take a turd in there? I suppose you just hold it in, don't you? Give Ron your fucking sausage.
Yeah.
When Ron is apologising to Francis, he says, I'm truly very sorry. The club's very, very empty. A bit like you. There's fuck all in it, apart from my brother's cock.
Yeah, that was funny. Like, in that fight, he grabbed Reggie by the balls, really hard. He's like, oh!
Never mess with a man's balls, mate. What the fuck?
Yeah. That was crazy.
She looks like a budgie in that dress, doesn't she? One thing I didn't like about this film, and I had a major problem with, actually, is, I like this film a lot, but the voiceovers explaining what's happening and filling in the gaps kind of pissed me off at the end of this watching it. For me, it's just quite lazy. Just show me what's happening with the narrative of the film. If the film has to be 3 hours long, I don't care. Like you were saying, if there's lots to fill in, make it 3 hours. I'll watch it if it's compelling enough. Just don't tell me what's going on. If I want that, I'll listen to an audiobook. One example, which you've mentioned, which is a great shot, which I really like, which really annoyed me, was when Frances is committing suicide, like you said. But, she's taking these pills one by one, and you have a really nice slow push-in with this really nice emotional music. But for me, that's all you need. We know exactly what she's doing. And you don't need the voiceover with it.
Yeah, exactly. The narrator of this entire thing is Frances, and she always chipes in with, what's happening or context and all this other stuff. But I kind of agree. One, I don't think it's necessary for this film. It really isn't. Some of it she's really kind of explaining that's obvious. And as you said, The rest of it could just be shown. I think the only reason they did it was to have this sort of shocking moment, and I put it in air quotes, shocking, that the narrator dies at some point in the film.
Yeah.
Which doesn't tend to happen if there's a character narrating a film, he makes it to the end. And she even does that in a line. It's like, after she commits suicide, I bet you'd expect, I must have survived that attempt, because how am I doing it? But, I don't know. No, I died. Yeah,
she keeps blabbering on after it. I'm just like,
but she keeps blabbering on. Even death will not stop her. It will not shut her up. She'll continue to narrate the Krays' lives. Obviously, the Krays are not going to heaven, but it's probably a good thing, because she'd be there, just narrating everything.
Have you got a favourite line?
Yeah, there's so much. I would say almost everything that Ron says is one of my favourite lines. I'm trying to think of lines that were really good that weren't funny, were just because there are parts where it's very fucking serious.
Well, that bit at the end when after Reggie kills Jack the Hat, that was quite powerful. Yeah,
and you just touched on that line before, but yeah, that's a good line where he's like, why did you do that? And he's like, because I can't fucking kill you as much as I want to.
Yeah.
And I thought that is a really good line.
So score for me, the characters were really well realised. For me, this is an example of a film where I wanted it to be longer, not shorter. But it's really funny as well, just really great for humour. So I'll go 7.6. How about you, sir?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And there are great lines throughout this film, and I like the overall story, but I do agree with every criticism. It's trying to pack way too much into the film. It needed to be longer. I agree with that. You didn't need the voiceover. I might be harsher on it. I'm going to be harsher on it, just so I'm fair. Yeah, I'll give it a 7.4.
All right. And again, I just feel like Christopher Eccleston's character is just such a waste. He's such a great character. Yeah. He's just... Because it's kind of frustratingly structured.
Oh, actually, that was a good thing. I really liked their talk, because it's one of the few talks that they have, him and Reggie. And, before they take a picture of him and, that gets them to drop the case. That was clever. That was really clever. So they look like friends, so it's like, dude, you've got to get off this game. But I like that whole talk where Christopher Eccleston is like, he's like, why are you here? And he goes, I just want to see the difference between you and me. He goes, well, what's the difference between me and you? It's like, we were both poor. We were both in rough neighborhoods, but I didn't have to resort to being a fucking criminal. Yeah. He's like, well, you decided to be a cop, though, and, lock up your own people. And I just like that back and forth. And it's like, man, how cool would that have been if that was scattered throughout the film? Do you know what I mean?
Eccleston's character just goes missing at the end. It's just... It's a shame for me. Acting, then... This is all about Tom Hardy. Let's not beat around the bush.
Yeah, so who do you prefer, Tom Hardy or Tom Hardy?
I prefer Tom Hardy, actually. I think he's great.
Okay. I think I'd go with Tom Hardy, actually. Yeah, I'm sorry to disagree with you, but Tom Hardy is much better.
Tom Hardy's a lot fucking better, right? Just shut up. But Tom Hardy as Ronnie Kray is amazing, because pretty much every scene he's in, you have this uncomfortable feeling that he's going to fuck someone up at any moment. It's really intense stuff, because in his performance and in his eyes, you definitely, because his eyebrows are very straight and down by his eyes, and just you do feel like he's just doesn't understand what the hell's, what's going on sometimes. What's so interesting about his character, he does feel very unsure of himself. And do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. He seems like a child.
Yeah, definitely.
He's definitely not suited for this and doesn't really understand what's going on. But the look that he has is just like this dead, cold... It's like his face is carved of stone, You've got no idea what's going on in there. And there are scenes where you're like, is he going to crack wise, or is he going to, fucking hurt someone? Is he just going to kill someone? I remember, actually, this perfectly exemplifies his attitude, several scenes. So I'm just going to go over them. But one where he was talking about their meeting with the mafia. And again, he just looks, dead-eyed into the distance when they're talking about, we should do deals with the mafia. And he's like, fuck him. He's just like, fuck it. And he's go, do you know what we should do? I don't like this, Reg. We should cut them into fucking pieces and send them back to, to America. And then they have the meeting. And you think, is he going to do that at any point in the meeting? But he doesn't. And then, what was it? Another scene, the one where he decides to kill that guy.
Payne, David Willis.
So, yeah, there's when he decides to kill George Payne. I liked when actually he just went mental on George. Like, because he goes mental on him from time to time, but he never roughs him up. But he wants to kill him. He just doesn't like him. But when they're talking about all the successes they've had, and he just I think he punches him hard. Yeah, he hits him with something hard, and he's bleeding, and he's just like throwing stuff at him. And he's like, we should kill him. He knows too much about us, and then Reg does that. Well, everybody knows about about us, and that's what fucks him over in the end, because that failed attempt makes Payne
I think that's what's quite great about the writing. Actually, is the fact that Ronnie needs Reggie so much. Reggie is the only one Ron can trust. Literally no one else around him. He doesn't trust anyone around him apart from Reggie.
Oh yeah, do you remember when he got up on the stage? I thought that was hilarious.
Blowing
the trumpet, and then he's like, "How many letters are in one? That's all of you." You're like,
yeah. And when he has that little dance in the Christmas party, it's like, I like this, yeah. And then when it goes soppy, he's like, soppy shit, or whatever. That was brilliant. But there's a great little scene after they have a fight where Ron is on the floor and Ron asks Reggie for a hand up, and Ronnie pulls him down.
Is that like their other twin that was left out of the film? The third one. Reggie, Ronnie, and Reggie.
Yeah.
He was the good Craig.
Yeah. But Ron asks Reggie for a hand up, and Ron pulls him down, and you're like, oh shit, is he going to start again? But no, Ron says, I'm very fragile, repeatedly, and Ron's is showing his very vulnerable side, and certainly in this film, Ron needs Reggie more than Reggie needs Ron, for sure. In this, film.
And I do like that as well, because they close in, the camera closes in on his fingers as they kind of lock by his neck, and then kind of go soft, so he's like, and I like that. It's like, these brothers have a connection. They do need each other. And it's like, and that's what Francis just cannot understand. It's like, you got to leave your brother and all this crazy criminal stuff. But he's like, just, he needs me. I need him.
Ron needs Reggie more than Reggie needs Ron. And I think Ron knows that. And you get this very subtle anger with Ron, but you see more vulnerability there, especially from that scene on, I think. So my favourite performance is certainly Tom Hardy as Ron for me. How about you?
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah,
I think if he was in it more, I would give a much closer to second to Paul Bettany.
Yeah.
He was great.
So score for me for acting. Yeah, it's really, really good from Tom Hardy to play two different characters with the stunt guy as well. The stand-ins to work with that's really impressive. To go that route in this film. And
I think it's great because you kind of forget they're played by the same actor, just how very different he is.
Because there's loads of scenes where it's just those two in the scene, so he has to kind of, do both parts at different stages of the shoot, so it must be pretty difficult. So I'm going to go a 9, I think.
I'll go pretty high just because of Tom Hardy.
Yeah.
9.3 or something.
Okay. Cool.
I think he does a tremendous job of having two fully realised, amazing characters who, are acted superbly, but are so different from one another. And as you said, he basically shares so many scenes with himself. It's very strange. Right,
let's add up the scores then for Legend. Legend gets 49.1. Right, my film then is Bronson. One of his earlier films, I would say. Again, it's kind of another biopic. Other films in contention, I was tempted to pick Warrior. That's a really good film with Joel Edgerton, I think.
Yeah, Warrior was a really good film.
Lawless, because I hadn't seen it, but we had picked a lot of gangster films recently, so I was like, nah, let's leave gangster films for now. We could have picked Mad Max Fury Road, but we've already picked that because we've covered it already in post-apocalyptic films. He's done a lot of great work in TV as well, like Taboo and Peaky Blinders is great. I'm a big fan of Nicholas Winding Refn, actually. With him, you either love his work or you absolutely hate his work. I am certainly someone who loves his work. I remember, when the reviews came out for Only God Forgives, it was either a 5-star reviews or 1-star reviews for that film.
No in between.
Yeah, there's no in between with Nicholas Winding Refn, and this is certainly no exception. It really does some really weird and out there things.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what happens in Bronson? Well, again, it's another like biopic type of story, but as I'll explain in screenplay, it's very much a biopic as if Bronson himself was telling it. Well, he's actually called Michael Peterson in real life as a young man. He gets married in Luton and he robs a post office and gets sentenced for 7 years in prison. But as he says, he had a calling in life. And his calling is that he always wanted to be famous, but he was not really into anything that would typically make you famous. So he basically becomes the most violent prisoner in British history.
Yeah.
And he goes from all these different prisons. He has a spell in a mental hospital. He gets out at one stage and then goes back into prison. Yeah, it just kind of follows his life through all these prisons, really, and all the different characters he meets along the way. And they kind of touch on his like artwork and his artistic stuff at the end, which is really, really out there.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the film, really. What did you make of this one then, Barry?
Yeah, man, I love this film. I would say it's a masterpiece. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I wouldn't go that far.
I think it is. I think it's a really good film.
Have you seen any of Nicholas Winding Refn's other films?
Probably not, actually.
He did like Drive,
No.
Only God Forgives,
Not
The
watched
Neon
that.
Demon.
No.
All right.
No.
Annoyingly, he's one of these people that thinks like cinema is dead now, so he hasn't made a film in a while,
Yeah.
which is really a real shame. But yeah, I really like this film as well. There are some issues for me. Directing then, I found the opening sequence great where it establishes that this film is going to be a very like stylized film of his life. You know, Tom Hardy is talking directly to the audience, breaking the fourth wall, saying he's always had a calling for something. And you have these great sequence of close-up shots. Then you see Tom Hardy in this very like dark cage. You know, it's all red and black and really high contrast look to it. He's covered in like oil. These prison guards come into his cell and they all have a fight. You know, the music of the Walker Brothers is playing with no sound effects. You know, the performance plus the style of the scene is going to express what this character is going to be like for the rest of the film. You know, a very violent, eccentric.
Yeah.
As I kind of said in the plot, you know, this film very much plays out like how Nicholas Winding Refn, the director, thinks Bronson would do a biopic of himself. You know, there's this very like stereotypical montage scene of his fame being like a violent prisoner hitting like the papers in this very comic book style. He, you know, like he's a superhero.
Yeah.
You know, there's these really like pulsy shots, you know, and bloody images.
Freeze frames on action that he was taking.
Yeah.
On officers, like punching them in the face, getting hit. I like the very inexplicable stuff, basically in Bronson's head, of him telling his story. So there's two ways that he narrates his story. One is in a just a black background, but the other more fun way is on a stage with like all these people, and he's dressed up like a mime. That was great. I love those scenes.
There's a great scene near the end with Phil, played by James Lance, where he believes in his art. You know, and he touches his foot and says, "You are finally going to get what you've always wanted." And then Bronson's like, "What do you know about what I fucking want?" And he looks away and then slowly turns his head back to look at Phil to completely intimidate him, who's like frozen, looking shit scared and us. And Bronson asks, like, "What happened to my tea, Phil?"
Yeah.
And then I love like the simple directing after that. Just a simple close-up on Phil with a like slightly low angle of him making tea, and in the background Tom Hardy just walks right behind him out of sight, and as soon as you can't see him, you know he's going to kill him.
Yeah.
Well, at least take him out, you know.
Well, I love because he gets a hand on his mouth, on his nose,
Yeah.
like boom, like that, and then boom, drags him out of shot. And then it goes into him on stage and everybody laughing and clapping and ta-ta-ta. And then I really like that follow-up scene. I think that whole sequence is good. And even with the switch to him explaining the story on stage, because it keeps doing that.
Yeah.
You know, at bits he thinks are kind of hilarious or ridiculous or sad. Then the audience chime in and he'll talk about his feelings on the matter. But I like that because when that scene of him yeeting the art director out of shot and everybody laughs because it's quite funny. And it's clapping, laughing. And then all the laughter stops, the clapping stops, and he's on stage. And he doesn't say a goddamn word. He just turns around and just goes to the back of the stage, you know, just leaves.
Yeah.
And I thought, like, to me, that was coupled with a scene that was hilarious, followed by one where you're like, ooh, like, there was a gravity to that. It's like, usually he's so funny on this stage in his mind, but this time he's like, there's nothing funny about this. This is distressing. Yeah, it's very bizarre. I thought that entire sequence and then the one afterwards, it's just kind of a roller coaster of, hilarious to, what the hell? To, oh.
Yeah, there's a lot of, like, different emotions you go
dark,
through, from, like, laughter to shock value to, like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
Certainly the end is just like, what the hell? But it's really, like, well done. There's a great shot where Bronson has covered himself in black paint and is standing with his back to camera in, like, this statuesque position on the stairs. But what's great about it is it kind of reminded me of a Francis Bacon painting where some of the background of the shot is in complete shadow and darkness, so his lower back is kind of like merging with the background. Not really sure what they were going with that, but it looked really good. You know, very interesting, as Phil would say. Then the next scene is really bizarre, where you see his Bronson again, but he's got a top hat on with a bright pink puppet with a weird grin on it.
Yeah.
You know, Phil is tied up with this blue blanket over his head, and then he takes the blanket off and is painting his face.
Yeah. Yeah, he paints his own face, Bronson's face, on the teacher's face and puts an apple in his mouth. And I like the tears, like they've got streams of tears just going down on the paint from the art teacher. That's really good.
Yeah. It's like Bronson is channeling his own insanity into this avant-garde art.
Yeah.
Where, like, nothing makes sense for him, I guess. I don't know.
There is a lot of violence in this film, like physical, like punch-ups, you know.
Oh, yeah. Then after that, like, loads of guards come in and try and take him out.
Yeah. And you've got, like, this epic slow-mo of just him taking on so many guys to the classical music that he requested, blaring, and he's kicking the crap out of them, and then they just grab him and go to town on him. And it's like the last shot in the film, it's not the last shot, but the last shot of Bronson is him just in absolute agony. He's covered in blood, and he's in a very small cage inside a small room inside, a prison. That was pretty crazy. He's just moaning to himself. When he leaves prison and he works as a fighter, there's several scenes I like about that. So one, I was saying, like the montage scene of him taking on loads and loads of fighters over a long period of time. Very kind of strange, sort of ominous music. I don't know. It was a very kind of low beat, sort of really weird stuff. And that was pretty cool. And then it ended with like him fighting a dog. Did you see that? And then it cut off where they unleash a dog on him and he's like, rah, like that, like roaring.
Oh, yeah.
And then it cuts to, he's with this girl. And that whole montage of just the crazy shit that he got up to, that was pretty insane.
I think my favourite shot is in the mental hospital, which isn't self-indulgent at all, when Bronson is in the mental hospital, and it's a very like simple tracking shot on a new character left of screen as he's walking across this big room with all the mentally ill people in it. And the camera goes right past Bronson in the foreground, sitting in a chair, all drugged up. The character we're following turns round and then sits next to him and talks to him about, it's all fake. But Tom Hardy's performance is amazing as he starts straining every inch of himself, and he's got like this fluid coming out of his mouth, and again, just like really disgusting. It's like he's going to explode or something. That must have taken a lot of stamina to get to that place. But yeah, just that shot of it, the camera just goes straight past him in the beginning. I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting.
Yeah. I think one of my favourite bits was when he's on stage having a conversation with himself about after he...
That's really cool.
Yeah, because his attempted... Even the scene with the attempted murder of that man, that was pretty crazy of just how low-key it was. Like, he strangles him, and then it pushes outwards, the camera, as he's, like, flailing on the ground. And all the other people are just... You know, there's this guy clapping. Yeah. There's no intensity to it, as he's just choking the fuck out of this guy. But then I like the scene after that. I just thought it was really amusing. And just even how it's done with him half-painted as a nurse and himself. Because he's like, here's how the conversation went, you know? Going back and forth.
That was weird. Yeah. Well, it was really not weird, but just like really well done.
I thought it was cool. It was very bizarre, but I thought I'd never really seen anything like that.
Yeah, just a great way to like move the story along, you know, with exposition.
Yeah,
but you do certainly get the sense that like Bronson himself is playing the female character, not Tom Hardy playing the female character, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
He's channeling Bronson playing the female character, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Directing score, Boaz, what are you going for?
9.1.
9.1, that is very high.
Oh, yeah, there's another thing I didn't mention is I really like the scene when he was really into his art, and the art teacher said, you know, try and unlock something that you won't find here. And he's drawing all this weird shit, and then you have this scene of basically animated his weird drawings, like they're all animated.
Very macabre.
My God, that was strange. It's like people with several heads and, you know, flying cocks and, you know. It's just, it was so trippy. It was like, you know.
Cocks with wings or something. Wings.
And just all this weird shit. You're like, what the hell? But that it's all animated and moving along. And then even how that transitions to him walking in the courtyard.
Because he's walking along and they still got the animation with the live action. That was really good. I wanted more of that. Yeah. It was a shame it was just very fleeting.
Yeah, that it was only in one scene. That was pretty freaky. I wasn't expecting that.
So directing score, I'm not sure I'll go that high. I think with the theatre stuff, that's really inventive and I really like that. And I kind of wanted more of that later on in the film. It kind of, like the first 40 minutes, you get a lot of that. Then in the second 45 minutes, you don't get much of it, which is a shame. So I'll go like 8.8, I think.
Because there are two ways that they're delivering exposition here, both with Charlie Bronson as narration. One in, as I said, a black background, and that keeps coming in from time to time. And on stage, I wish they just picked one. I would have picked just the stage. I think the stage stuff, I have never seen narration like that.
So screenplay then, as we've kind of touched on already, you know, I like actually how Bronson is actually telling this story to us, you know, on stage, as you said. It's kind of set up like this one-man show, and what's really interesting about the fact that it's put on stage is that he's telling us this story to these middle-aged white men in all these black ties, which is kind of like the audience that he wants to like rub their faces in it when he's telling them this story, because there is moments where like someone heckles at him and he, you know, jabs at him.
Yeah, no, that was a really good scene where, what was it? I'm going to be famous, and somebody says, for what? And he goes, oi. You know, he literally, you don't want to be locked in with me, sunshine.
And there's a great moment where Bronson first goes into prison and he starts crying with the back to camera, and then cut to him back on stage, like covered in the black and white makeup, you know, in a suit, like, surprise.
Yeah, I like that. With his hands on his face, and he's like, ah.
Yeah, you know, and he says, I've always fancied myself as a bit of a comedian, but it's not funny. But I think it's intentionally not funny because it's Bronson telling the joke, which he thinks it's funny. You know, they're playing around with the fact that he might be a bit of a softie, but obviously, of course, he's definitely not, and definitely wasn't, you know.
Yeah.
So I like that, the fact that Bronson is kind of telling a bad joke in the script.
Because there's a lot of compilations, like a lot of montages. Yeah, one montage I've completely forgot about, but when he was talking about like his life up to that point, and even as a kid, he's just beating the shit out of people. Do you remember where he like threw a chair at a teacher and stuff like that?
Oh yeah.
And some officers go to just talk to him, and he just beats the crap out of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's never like a really great guy. I also find it funny that in this world of Bronsons, there are some very strange people. Like his uncle is bizarre. You know, when he went to see his uncle, and there's like all these women and guys dressed as women, and it's playing some really weird music and stuff. And they give him a drink, and he just looks awkward as fuck. He's like,
he's got his suitcase.
with his suitcase there, yeah. He's like, you can stay here. And then the girl is rubbing her hand on his leg, and his uncle is also rubbing his hand on his leg. He looks like he's wearing like a dressing gown.
Yeah.
Like that was. There's some very very strange people. I like also his fight promoter. He was fucking hilarious.
You know, I like those scenes, but I do feel like the film did lose a bit of momentum when he does get out of prison the first time.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, the pacing does slow down a lot. And I feel like they hold on to some of those scenes a bit too long, and you lose some of the intensity. And you lose a lot of, as I was kind of saying, you kind of lose a lot of the creative style as well. Like, there's no theatre stuff in this part of the film, which is a shame. You know, there is some funny stuff, but I think they could have cut a little bit of those scenes.
Yeah.
Personally.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. Most of the story and like most of, you know, anything that kind of properly happened is in the prisons, and you know, that's kind of what you're there to see, his time in prison. And yeah, really that small period outside is kind of inconsequential.
Like, after the very weird, like, avant-garde stuff, you get these like, pretty much near the end, you get these facts about Bronson, that he's, you know, Britain's most famous prisoner. Then you have this scene, like, as you described, when he's just in this cage, this really small cage, and it's kind of like it's out of a horror film, where again he's like butt naked, and he's got a lot of blood over him, and the camera kind of pulls out slowly, and the film just ends for me. And I did get the sense that they didn't know how to end the film. You know, some people have described that this is a modern day, like, Clockwork Orange, which it isn't whatsoever. You know, Clockwork Orange is a masterpiece, in my opinion. With this, it kind of left me a little bit cold at the end. My opinion of him didn't change throughout the film. It just feels like a collection of scenes in the end, and the first 40 minutes is amazing in this film. The second 40, not so much.
I think this is where I kind of deviate from you, I suppose. I liked it, I think, a lot more than you did. And yeah, you know, I would even say the last half I quite liked. You know, is it as good as the beginning? I'm not sure, but there are some very interesting choices. I think there's still some very good directing, and I don't think this story necessarily has to have a point, like, or that you have to change your mind about him. I think the way he's kind of presented is he's just a very disturbed individual who is very violent, and nothing changes for him. There is no character arc. I think the closest you get to a character arc of some sort of redemption is through his art. He quite likes his art. But the fact that it makes the guards happy, it's like, fuck you. You know, that's the least thing I want to do. So he just regresses, goes back to being just, you know, doing what he does, just being violent. There's no lessons learned. And the fact that he's still in prison, still, you know, God knows how long he's been there. He hasn't changed, you know, after all this time. So I think it's just a window of, this is what this guy's like. He's just violent as fuck. He doesn't learn anything. And how it ends, it doesn't end because he's not dead.
With Nicholas Winding Refn's work, with maybe the exception of Drive, I've not seen Valhalla Rising, but they're not particularly accessible to, like, mainstream audiences. And I think with this, I think throughout the film, the deeper you go into this film and the further you go to the end, it becomes less and less accessible and less comprehensive on, like, what, with the storytelling, it becomes even more, like, avant-garde with Bronson's art itself. And I think it's kind of like they're trying to delve into Bronson's mind, like, deeper and deeper into this story until there's, like, you're completely lost into his mind at the end, if you know what I mean. Maybe that's what they were going for. All they visually can do is just have Bronson in this cage full of blood, covered in blood, you know. Which, reflecting on it, maybe that was kind of like the only way they could do it. really end it, I guess.
Hmm.
I'm not sure.
And I think, you know, maybe they kind of stopped on like exposition scenes because it's like it feels like you can read him less and less, and he just becomes more quiet, more reserved, and then they don't even have those exposition things anymore. I think maybe it's just it gets you used to knowing what's in his mind, and to a certain point, then it's like nobody's got a clue what's in his brain, you know, not even you, you know.
You kind of get lost in the film,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
With all the avant-garde stuff. So I think thinking about it a bit more, maybe, that was kind of a really interesting way to go and quite bold, I guess. But certainly it's not going to be to everyone's taste. Yeah. Which I like, though.
I do agree with you. It doesn't have like any sort of satisfying resolution or a good ending, as it were, or anything like. It just peters out and it sort of just dissipates. It's like it's gone. I love the bit in the script where he's comparing prisons to hotel suites. That was brilliant. So, and as I said before, there are a lot of montages in the film, and I like that the speech that he's giving coupled with a montage of all the prisons he's visited. My particular favorite is where he's like saying, "I wouldn't recommend this stay. That was actually really quite nice, you know." And he was like, the food in this place was good. And I like how he's just beaten to fuck with a straitjacket and they put the food through the door. He just like spits blood on it. Yeah, so one scene I also quite like is where he takes the librarian hostage. That was quite funny. He was giving him his books. And then he just like locks the door. And then he's like, I got him. I'm going to break his fucking neck. And then he gets a phone call from the warden, and he's like, you know, hello, you know, and he's like, well, what do you want? And he's, well, what have you got? He goes, well, that's entirely up to you, innit? And he's like, yeah, fuck off, you know. I just like how he hasn't even thought this through, like,
yeah.
Oh yeah, and that scene also because he gets naked and he puts on his war paint before he beats the fuck out of everybody. And he gets the librarian to. He's like, "You get my back, do my back, and my ass. Not in my ass, you fucking faggot. Around my ass." Yeah,
I love that.
And I love because it was also a very strange scene because this is the first time I've seen. That isn't a prosthetic, is it? Like that is Tom.
No, that is definitely his Bronson.
I was going to say Tom Hardy's Hardy, but it's more like his softy. It's a very tiny, flaccid penis.
Yeah, it's an extraordinary piece of acting that he's trapped a prison guard in his cell and he decides to strip down naked and he gets the prison guard to rub grease on his back and his ass. And he starts shouting, quicker, 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 fuck off, sit down, in a corner, don't move.
Yeah, that was good.
It's just so funny and scary at the same time because Tom Hardy is just absolutely going for it big time. It's so intense and unbelievable. And I was just like, what is happening? I don't understand.
Yeah, I think that might be one of my favourite scenes, if not my favourite scene.
Yeah. I'm not sure much beats that line, but there's some other ones. Irene and I got hitched. It was all right. Take these pills. And then Bronson says, stick 'em up my fucking arse. Luton is where it's at.
Oh, yeah, that was funny. Oh, no, because he has a conversation with someone on the train. Something like, what you doing? He's like, I'm going to go kill the Queen. It's like, you... And she's like, well, you off to London now, then? It's like, nah, Luton's where it's at, you know?
Yeah.
Boom. Shot at Luton. It's like, what the hell?
I can't remember his name now, but his fight promoter, when he gets out, he's like, well, fuck me inside out. Come in, my dear. You're just in time for cocktails. Or was that his uncle? I can't remember.
Oh, yeah, that was his uncle, yeah. Yeah, no, his fight promoter, he has one of my favourite lines, actually, I think probably, where he gets him his first fight, and he beats up the guy and then takes a piss on him. Yeah. And then at the end, they're outside in a field, and Bronson's like, 20 quid? I just gave you art there. He's like, you pissed on a tramp, you pissed on a yeah, that was it. You pissed on a gypsy in the middle of fucking nowhere. It's hardly the hottest ticket in town, darling.
Yeah, that's my favourite line,
that was a good line.
Nobody gives a toss about Charlton Heston. The man's like, which I think is really harsh. I'm like, what's wrong with Charlton Heston? Have I missed something? Don't call the police for 10 minutes. 15. minutes. Happy Christmas.
Yeah, that was funny. Yeah.
Sit down. Not there. The fucking car's at you. Have you got a favourite then? Or have you said yours already?
I think it might be the gypsy one.
Screenplay score, what are you going for?
Man, the screenplay was amusing as fuck. I do kind of understand what you mean, where you say, like, it sort of loses its momentum and it goes a bit crazy. To me, I think it going crazy sort of makes sense. He's fucking crazy. And the less sense it makes thematically and story-wise, I think, yeah, fine, fuck it, you know. I'd also go pretty high, because I just quite like it. Maybe I'll go 9.1.
I certainly wouldn't go as high as that, I don't think. Yeah, it's really funny and just really like, whoa, what the hell is happening at times, which I really admire. It's just that middle bit in the film, which after the first 40 minutes is so good, and then it just takes a real downstep in momentum, which is a real shame for me.
Yeah, would you say when he kind of goes to Luton? Would that
Yeah,
be?
pretty much, which is a shame. And then I kind of do like the boldness of where it goes when he gets back into prison with all the art stuff. It's really, really interesting, and I think you certainly can read that in a lot of different ways, you know, and then it just ends, which on thinking about it a bit more is really interesting. So, as Phil would say.
Yeah.
So, I would go 8.4, I think.
Yeah, actually, okay, I'll actually change that from a 9.1. I think you're right, it's probably a bit too high, but
Sure.
I will still do it high. 8.7.
Okay. Acting then. The film has one of the most disgusting scenes I've ever seen in a movie.
Oh, I know exactly what you're fucking talking about. Is it the first day at the mental asylum?
Yep.
Oh my god. Yeah.
When Bronson has been moved to the funny farm, as he calls it, and Bronson just watches a guy take a shit in the corridor.
That was horrible. Do you know I was
And
eating
catches it.
I was eating a burger as that was happening, and I immediately
great.
put that down, threw it in the trash. I don't want to eat anymore. Yeah, he takes a shit in his hand and then
Yeah.
covers his face in the shit. Like, really slowly as well.
Yeah.
That was horrible.
That's what makes it so horrible to watch, because not only do they have the bravery to show something like that, but to make it feel so long, it's incredible. It's so horrible.
Yeah. Yeah, that was...
I never want to see that scene again.
Yeah, no, that was a really disgusting scene. Could have been worse. I could have been eating chocolate mousse.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that was a really fucked up scene.
Or a Mars bar. Or
Or a
something.
Mars bar.
In the mental hospital, it's really funny when all these mentally ill people are dancing to It's a Sin by the Pet Shop Boys, and Tom Hardy is moving like a zombie through the crowd. And again, it's like, I think it's one of these situations in a film where the film is kind of daring you to laugh at this, and unfortunately I did laugh. You can't help but
Yeah.
laugh at that.
Yeah, I like because also like he's trying to dance because you see him just kind of shamble in the
Yeah,
background.
because he's so drugged
He's
up.
so drugged up he can barely move, and then he tries to just walk to the door, and the guards are like, well, "Oi, like move back."
Yeah.
He's like, "Fucking," turns around. The art teacher was
Yeah.
very strange, like, you know, his Spanish words just coming out of nowhere, and his very lively hand movements. The warden was kind of weird. He kind of reminded me of like a lot, you know, he's just like a substitute teacher or something. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Favorite performance? Tom Hardy, I think.
Oh yeah, 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 without a doubt. I think even like an unsung good actor is the strange guy that he almost tried to kill. Like, he was creepy. He was really creepy, you know.
Who's that?
The mental patient who you said had that really
Oh,
good
yeah,
tracking
yeah.
shot where he walked past him, and he talked to him. He's very weird, and then even before he was going to kill him, he's like looking over at him and like naughty and all this shit. Like, he was. I think he was a really good actor for the very small role he had. I think he really played that damn well. Like, you know, he should get a bigger part on something.
Died very quickly.
He did. Yeah. So yeah, acting. What will I do with acting? I'm gonna go 8.8.
Yeah, I think I might go the same, actually, 8.8, because I gave 9 for Legend, where he's playing 2 parts. And also the commitment to actually like build his body up as well.
Yeah, man, he got really big.
Right, let's add up the scores then for Bronson. Bronson gets 52.6. So Bronson is our winner for this week. whereas Legend only got 49.1. So fairly tight. I think the right film won. I mean, Legend's still really good.
Legend is good. I do like Legend.
I would happily put that on.
Yeah. You know, I had fun when I watched it. I think it was one of the cases of when you told me to pick Tom Hardy films, I would have picked Bronson, and then you'd already taken that up.
Next week then, as finally, No Time to Die is hitting cinemas around the world. So, of course, we'll be having a look at our favourite James Bond films. Again, if you want to show your appreciation for the podcast and say a big thank you, just have a look at our show notes below and click on the link of Buy Me a Coffee and just buy us a coffee to say thanks. Not much at all, but it'll be fully appreciated. As always, Boaz, you've been fucking brilliant.
You've been a...
Bye-bye.
Yeah. Give me your fucking sausage. That sounded really gay.
Next time, I'll expect a fucking shootout.
Yeah. Like a Western.
We need to do a Western one.
Yeah, we need to do a Western, yeah. Do a Western.
All right. Bye-bye.
Right.
That's it for this week's pod. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. If you would like to find out more about the podcast or suggest future topics for us to discuss related to upcoming releases, let us know on Instagram at Film vs. Film Podcast and on Twitter at FVF_podcast. Remember, please subscribe. Pod signing off.